super visceral shit. Like, again, if it's too bad or if it comes across too raw, we just won't put it up.
We just won't do it.
Yeah. Like for me, it was the conversation about my conversation from past. You kind of heard the conversation between me and Jesse, right? Where, I mean, everything came up. Religion.
Oh, the one that was...
yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The religion conversation.
I kind of heard it, yeah.
It was kind of interesting to hear her perspective on what I do, right? Because everyone's going to have a perspective on the shit that you do and who you are and everything else, but it's nice to, it took me years, dude, to get to a space where people actually saw what I'm doing versus not seeing it, right? Like Alex Hormozy, he's this dude, he owns a place called Gym Launch, so like helps gyms establish themselves.
Gotcha.
He has a quote. He said, the people who are receiving applause are the people who don't need it. Nobody claps for you when you want it. And that shit stuck with me so hard.
People who are receiving applause are the ones who don't need it. No
Right.
one claps for you when you want it. So like when you're building it up is when you want the accolades. Once it's already built.
It would be nice for someone to affirm the hard path I'm taking.
Yeah.
And no one is.
Yeah.
If anything, they're fighting against the path you're taking, right?
Yeah.
Then when you actually manifest the thing, now all of a sudden everyone comes
But then
along
it's
and they're
like-
like, wow, great job manifesting the thing. People will say things like, I've had people say this about me. Man, I helped him build that. If it wasn't for me, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, nobody was here with me when I sat and did it difficult, when I had to sit down in here in the late nights where I cleaned up by myself, where I was holding space and wasn't sure how we were going to pay the bill. Like, nobody's there for those moments to help you figure it out. And I don't take for granted the people who come along. Like, so we talk about that. But at the same time, like, I had to learn how to not be mad that the applause wasn't there or that the get better wasn't there. And then I had my sources of folk who I believed in, I knew saw me for what I was doing, and I talked with those people. And if those people called me out, then that's different. But like the general pop, the people who aren't like really in but are in, it's cool if you misunderstand me. I'm gonna be a villain to somebody. I guarantee you there's a whole group of people out there who think I'm just not the greatest person. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. So I'm watching how you're trying to find that space for yourself. Again, you're stepping into your leadership role more than before. And like, I say this for people who don't understand. I have the right to call you out. I'm the owner of space. I am your mentor. I have the right to call you out. But there are so many people that are gonna have opinions about what you do. Doesn't fucking matter, right? And that's why it's important to know who your core people are. Love everybody else, like LaWanda said it today. I don't know how Lyndon does it. And even you were like, no, there's admiration in it. He's done it in spite of so many times. But you've seen me in the low moments where I was like, this shit is exhausting. I'm pissed, right? I've had my moments. Shit, I've been mad at you. Like, it's okay to be upset. But it's one of those things where, like, if you don't understand that people don't get it, it makes it harder. They just don't get it.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And they're not trying to be mean or rude, even if they're creating separation from you for themselves.
Right.
They really don't get it. So I see you going through that, and I'm like, yeah, yep, been there. Right path, you're on the right path. But I'm sure it don't feel
think
good.
there's something to it that feels transformative to me in the fact that, like, I think I've talked about how I felt like I've been running away from like relationship in a way most of my life, and I wanted to part of me using my voice as like not having to do that, like standing my ground, like being able to say a thing and be like, oh, I don't have to go back on that. Like, yeah, maybe my delivery needs to change, but I don't need to go back on what I said. That feels horrible every time.
Fair.
And I think that's what I was speaking on, like with Carol yesterday, is like you showed the example of what I was missing, which is like your authenticity makes it so that your words are clear, and even if someone misinterprets them, it's on them.
All right.
And later on, it seems that people come around. You know, people are like, all right, well, even though I felt horrible, I don't feel horrible towards the about the person.
Right.
Like,
It's the person made me feel bad. As an example, using the whole Carol thing. Shouts out to Carol. Carol was a client we had working with us before, and she had some serious health concerns. Ended up having to leave. But when she came back, she didn't, like happens. People are going through something hard, and they are, they're upset and they're very reactive. And Carol was very reactive during that time. And I sat down with Carol and I simply said, "Hey, not okay." Right? Like, I understand that you're going through something, but not okay. This caused Carol to run in the other direction at the time. And I remember you being like, "Man, I feel like I messed that up. I feel like I made a mistake." And I was just like, "It's fine." Right? And like, you felt bad, which is a good thing, by the way, because it shows that you really care, right? Which is important for what we do. But Carol just came back yesterday and signed up. And when she signed up, she said that she was like, "You're the best space, hands down. I've tried other places. I've shopped around. You're the best place." Like, good feeling to me, man.
Yeah.
Right? That means that, again, and that's why I said truth is undeniable. Right? I'm not saying that I'm the best space, but if I provide something that makes you feel like I'm the space you have to be in, dope. Right?
Yeah.
Am I better than trainer X down the road or trainer Y across town?
Yeah.
Sure, whatever. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
In the
To some
long
people.
spread of things, like
Right.
when it comes to helping people, not really, right? There are some people it will matter to, right? Like, shouts out to Sarah Rutherford. I think it matters for the workouts being challenging. Someone already having a fitness level and wanting to be challenged more. I think it matters to them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it matters to the average person coming in the door who can't even, let's say, move properly, right? Those people need a lot of support. And at first, I tried to help everyone. So I would take a Carol at a quarter of the price that I charge Carol. You get what I'm saying? Because I thought I was doing a good thing. I realized that
value.
those same people that I was trying to show value did not understand the value.
See the value.
So because of that, the way they moved, acted, and reacted to me was not what I wanted, right? So if you pay attention, I try to teach you that lesson. Like, whenever I'm showing, it's like, no, give the value, they'll show up, right? Like, you were talking about your class expanding, and I was like, yeah, keep fucking doing different stuff, keep being innovative, keep making people want to show up. Like, I want to think your class is corny, because your class being corny tells me you're doing it right? Because I look around the room and they're just like loving it because it's corny. Corny is a superpower if you do it right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be cool, right? And I used to struggle with it on the opposite side. See, I'm meticulously cool, right? Meaning, like, I plan how I look, what matches with what, even when I teach, right? He said yesterday, "That's the list? Oh, so you just play what you feel." I said, no, to a degree that happens, but I'm also paying attention to all of you. I wanted to play these 12 songs today, but maybe we're only gonna get to 7, right? Like, I'm paying attention to all of that. When I teach, I am by nature being very meticulous with what I do. And that's why it feels so good to people. You know, I curated it, right? I'm not out here just making, let's say, broccoli, chicken, and rice, white rice. I'm out here cooking a real meal, like something with some flavor and some seasoning. And that's what people want. So that's why we've had so many different conversations, so many layers about not worrying about other people, doing your own thing, staying creative, and just really enjoying the process, man. Like, the rest comes, right? I'm 10 years in, and like, this is my first year where I'm just like, damn, there's a lot of gratitude stuff happening around. That means there was 9 years without it to this level. It just got better every year. You get what I'm saying? Beautiful. So I see you going through it, man.
Yeah.
I see you going through it, and I want to support you as your mentor. But at the same time, the growing pains are real, right? It never feels good to have someone doubt who you are and then try to define you by their limitations of imagination. You know, that's what it feels like. It feels like they don't understand, so they keep trying to tell you who they are based on the box they create. Right?
Right.
So you've been experiencing that. How's that feel?
It feels. I mean, a lot of the time I felt unseen, and I will say this feels different in the fact that you said know who you're, like who's supporting you, who's in your corner, like who is filling your cup, And I think that I've always had people in my life try to give to me in that way, and my focus was always on who's hurt, and I don't think I don't feel comfortable like having someone else help me fill my cup, like that feels like taking to me.
Fair.
And but I'm leaning into that more and more because I'm realizing in order to grow, in order to not put limitations on myself, like I need stability there, like I need stability somewhere to be like, all right, if something's going on in my life, I can talk to this person, and even if they agree 100% with what this other person says, I know it's coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place to tear me down.
Yeah. What's and you can speak to this as you're going through it. Like, again, this is something I've already been through, something I kind of understand. When you make a choice to live the way you want to live, it doesn't matter what your lifestyle choices are. It's the way you want to live. You watch your life line up with those things when they are authentic, right? And it's a lot of people would go the route of right or wrong, and such a subjective thing, right? Based on what I believe, could your lifestyle be wrong to me based on my belief?
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that you're not lining up with yourself. And this is the conversation I ended up having with Jessie, right? She was like, how do you do that when your beliefs don't really
match up with
the thing? I said, well, the problem is that people focus on the negative, right? They're only focused on what you think it's supposed to be, not what it actually is. And we talked about ethos a little bit, and I talked about 3 things that need to happen in order for people to really get heard. You catch that?
Listen.
Yeah.
Then have your heart aligned.
Correct.
And then use your mind to speak.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Exactly. Yes. A lot of times
I went home and wrote that down.
That's funny.
On the slide.
Because a lot of the times people always want to tell you about themselves or tell you about yourself. So if you already come into a circle and you're not listening, then you're not really part of the circle. You're more of an intruder or an invader. You're not part of that community yet because you're not here to be part of it by being part of it.
Because there's no diplomacy.
You're not listening at all. You're not part of that community.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? You can come and take from that community as long as they allow it. Good on you. But that doesn't make you part of that community, right? So listening helps you to realize what's actually happening in front of you. So yeah, then the next part was aligning of the heart. Again, you can't just listen, right? Listening is just the beginning. Aligning the heart means to see people for who they are. It's compassion, right? It's to have actual compassion. Something I see churches do wrong all the goddamn time is they have levels of compassion that are matched by the limitations of the people they choose to put in those positions, right? I can't even say it's the church's fault as far as what that person believes, but it's absolutely the church's fault when they put someone in place whose limiting belief becomes the restriction on the space.
Comes the ethos.
Right. Like imagine if I had you at the front and you didn't want anything to do with anyone who was not the same color as you. Yeah. How's that work out? That means that every person who doesn't look like, who doesn't have the same skin tone as you is no longer welcome here. You get what I'm saying? And I may not believe that, but if I got you at the front doing that, then they may never get to me.
Then you believe that.
You get what I'm saying? It looks like I believe that, right? So we kind of talked about this with LaWanda today. I was like, no, it was important to me that my coaches understood me as an individual and then understood the ethos, right? So your heart, your compassion helps you to actually see people. Huge. Then you can use your mind to create conversation around it because you're already listening, because you have an empathetic heart, right? You're already literally 3/4 of the way there. Now share who you are. And most people will listen. Most people who will sit in that space with you will be listening. I've had so many dope conversations with Timur, just like they believe this, I believe this, and we're just literally riffing off one another to speak on our truths. And it feels so genuine, so fluid, so natural that I could talk to Timur for hours.
Oh, yeah.
And it could be about little to nothing, but because we're both who we are, it would be about so much. You get what I'm saying? And to me, it's the exact type of relationships I want in my life. I don't want people who want to feel better and take from me, and that's all they know how to do.
Right.
So I stopped talking, right? You said you had a mute season, right? The mute season, I think, sets you up to listen. And then once you start listening, then where's your heart at, right? Are you doing things out of hurt, or are you doing things out of healing, right? And a lot of the times you have to heal yourself before you can help someone else, right? Then I can share who I am, right? When I've made those connections, compassion, listening, compassion, I can then start to talk and share who I am. So a lot of the leaders, they just want to be heard, man. And that's why they don't feel good to people. That's my personal opinion. You know? This space is not about that at all. So
Damn. A lot of leaders just want to be heard.
yeah, and they don't have much to say. They have they have their own message.
Yeah.
But being selectively mute can help you see the world in a different light. When you're always talking, when you're always at the front, it's hard to see, right? And man, we could go down the rabbit hole of what that is, but let's just say there are groups of people who have spent their whole life talking. And that's why they have trouble seeing other people. Stop talking. You might see somebody. Listen more. You might see somebody. The reason why we love Amy so much, she sat and watched and listened and made space for her. It's hard to not love someone who loves people without words. You understand what I'm saying? Think of people who love without words. Tell me those people aren't valuable to you. They don't have to tell you what it is. They can just act on it. And you, because of how they do it and how thoughtful it is, you love them. All right? I actually think words mess up things quite a bit for a lot of people, being completely honest. Yeah.
You know what? I agree with that. Just from where I'm coming from, I agree with that 100%. Like, there's so much I see in the world, and I think I'm just attuned to what's not being said, you know? And I also feel in past relationships I've had people like vie for me to use more words.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think it's ever like cross the bridge. You know, like it creates a bridge, but it doesn't cross the bridge.
Yeah.
You know, I think creating the bridge of connection can be done through communication, but in order to actually send love across the bridge, it's like action.
And then we get down to our love languages, right? Our love languages kind of tell who we are. Like, it's so interesting that the people who ask for more words are never satisfied with the words.
Right.
Does that make sense? I've never seen, it's very rare for someone to want more words and to feel satisfied. Also, you notice that that person doesn't change, right? That person stays almost exactly the same because it needs to be said a million times, right? I don't know about you, but I get real tired explaining the same thing over and over and over again.
You know, I think my patience just wore thin for the first time.
Fair.
In my life. In my life.
I will make space for a person in a season 100% for their growth, right? But a season is not my life.
Yeah.
Like if you think your season is my life, you got it wrong, right? And that's where I might not be talking to you as much, or I might change how I interact with you. And on top of that, again, how do I feel when we interact? Do you make me feel terrible? Do you make me feel like a good person? Do you make me feel like a bad person? All that becomes important to me. The biggest mistake I see made in a lot of different conversations is that people want to be visceral, right? They create more separation than they do community. And again, we just gave the 3 ways to start real communication, right? In my opinion, that's how you do it. And you do it like that. I don't care where you are. I don't care where you're leading. But if you lead like that, it usually lands really, really well. We had a incident earlier today where I used a word or a phrase that someone might think is more malicious, right? But that person didn't think about all the connections I made before that word was used. all
we
they
were
thought
talking about
about was
earlier.
that word,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah.
just thought about that moment, and they were like, I hate that moment. And then it was funny because that's happened more than once. And only to know me is to understand that I don't say anything just to say a thing, right? I'm saying something because I've thought about it, probably 5 times before it left my mouth, right? It's very rare that I say something from a reaction space.
And I'll attest to that 100%. I think when we first got into relationship together, I remember a few times where I felt like you were calling me a name, right? And then you really think back, you're like, all right, he's not calling me that name.
Right.
He's just saying it looks like this, or you're doing things that you're acting like this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I think people do that a lot. You're looking to be hurt, so in conversation, you're like, oh, well, what was that? I don't like my connotation of that word.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I don't want to say, and again, I like to think that it's a funny conversation that we could get to. Well, again, there's some deep topics to be had with these words, but it's watching someone try to change the truth. You get what I'm saying? The truth is the truth.
This one's my truth, though.
Right. That's exactly that's that subjective truth mess. And look, have your truth. It's fine. I don't have no problem with you believing what you believe.
But what are you doing with that truth?
Right. And way more important, is it the actual truth? Is the conversation that I would rather have? You get what I'm saying? And again, this is where I think this is where me and Jesse, where we were talking, she's like, no, you love from this space. And we can all tell it's real, which is why, even though we're uncomfortable, we go into those spaces with you. And I was like, yeah, because of how I lead. But how I lead isn't a bending thing, right? So many people think I'm compromising. I'm not. I'm changing how I show the thing, right? I can't say I understand love, and then I get a deeper understanding of love, and then I love the exact same way.
And then I don't make the change.
You get what I'm saying? But did love change? No, love didn't change.
How
I showed love changed. And that is what I mean. I didn't change loving people. I didn't change loving myself.
And I think that's the season I'm going through. It's
I see it. Yeah,
it's like, nothing's changed inside. Definitely how I'm expressing is very different. Like the talk with LaWanda, I know you were training Vogler, but I was talking with LaWanda and I was like, you don't understand. You're starting to understand that this isn't the space I came from. It's how I'm talking right now. The people that are in my life from before know me a certain way.
And they're trying to hold you to it.
Yeah.
Right? They're trying to hold you to that. Well, that's not the person I know. But that's what it means to grow.
Yeah.
It means to not be the person you knew.
Yeah, I'm shedding skin.
Unrecognizable. You know what I'm saying? To some people in my life, those who knew me back then at my core, they still see me as me. But Fred was in here telling that story that one time. Man, half the people in here would never.
Honestly, that
have
story
guessed that.
was crazy.
It's funny.
That story, we haven't talked about it, but I was like, I was like,
you're like, what? And
sound like an anime.
Yeah, that's because again, at one point, man, I was a wild boy. You know what I'm saying? And I say this all the time. But I don't think people get it, right? It's just like when somebody, I think it was Sarah was like, I'm a lover and not a fighter. And I was like, well, you can't be a lover and not be a fighter. Because if you really love, you got to fight for your love, right? Somebody going to come along and try to take that from you. You got to fight for it. It's one of those things where pushed into a corner, I'll fight. And I grew up like that. I grew up pushed into a lot of corners, right? Not because I wanted to be, but because that's what it was happening in my life, right? So that turned into me being more aggressive and let's say masculine to a point where some people would consider it toxic. But me loving didn't change. I've always loved. How I was able to show that love based on environment, situations, and people in my life, that changed. But my love never changed. And I truly believe, and I've said this 100 different times, the love that I'm showing is the closest form of God, the expression of God I can give. Right? So that's why when people are so confused, why do you put up with that? I put up with that because somebody else won't and you need it. Right? Oh, you talk to me crazy? I mean, I'm not content about it and I'm going to call it out, but at the same time, I'm going to stay with you. Right? I'm not going to leave because I'm offended. I'm going to stay with you and tell you I'm offended. Right? And I hope that we're able to go past the moment, and you get to see me for who I am.
You talking that shit. Honestly, you talking that shit. I literally, it was just like, that's how I'm feeling right now. It's like the whole, I don't want to have to move. You know, I want to be an obelisk of truth, of like transparency. Like if I'm discovering my anger for the first time, and I think it's hard for me to speak on, but I think I need to speak on it more. You know, like, yeah, I'm angry about a lot of shit. I'm angry, you know, that this doesn't feel good. Like, people are saying that they feel love from me, you know, but then as soon as I
Doesn't feel like love.
yeah, and then as soon as I'm like, you know, not doing it exactly the way you want, but it's still love. It's still an expression of love. I'm like, now you want to motherfuck me? I'm like, hey, like, I kind of do want to back away and,
I mean, you don't
clam
kind of
up,
want
right?
to. You absolutely want to. You've been told your love isn't enough.
Yeah.
And look, I hope if you're in a relationship, I hope you really hear this. Like, because this is where I think people mess it up. I'm gonna use our relationship as an example. Like, I love you, right? And I think a lot of people get it confused, right? Because I love you doesn't mean I want to be physically intimate with you.
Right.
It means that I'd rather be spiritually connected and emotionally intertwined, right? That doesn't mean I need to physically express that. Fair? So many layers to that, right? But again, I don't want to get too religious, but I try to make sure I say things that line up with who I am. There's a version of love that's perfect that I could never show.
Yeah.
I can try really hard to get close though.
Yeah.
Right? And when I show that version of love that I truly believe is perfect, or the closest I can get, that doesn't look like me being only loving you under condition. It looks like me loving you, right? You've heard me say, I love like a dad.
Yeah.
That's why. To me, the expression of love forgives. It forgets. It considers. It makes space. When I watch most people, it's make space until. Love until.
And then
it's
that's
conditional.
the retraction into
Correct.
I need to be safe for myself. It's
Correct. I know for a fact that everybody ain't my age in here, right? But there's a lot of people in here who are similar to age to me, and they have those wounds. And I still have to treat them like I treat my kids.
And right? I think that's the craziest thing about you is like hearing your story. It's like obviously you have had wounds just like everyone else, and to see that you're like vivacious about healing from those wounds and moving past. And I think a lot of people are used to holding on to their wounds for years and like pressing down emotions and then lashing out and then like convincing themselves that like the lashing out is fine. And eventually they'll get what they want. And like I was doing the same thing, you know, like in certain ways. So I think it is transformative to meet you in that way. It's like, oh, I don't have to do it like this. Like I can stand in uncomfortability and, you know, and heal.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's not easy being a person who loves in spite of, right? But the reward heavily outweighs the burden to me, right?
No, I mean, I'm getting that. I'm getting that.
Like to me, it's so much. I mean, to be closer to the life you actually want via living in a way that takes on burden. I'm sorry. I'm like, I wouldn't go back. Like that's, and sometimes that's hard to say. Like there are days where that is not an easy thing to say. But like, the life I have now is so different. And I bring this up because you know a lot of people weren't here for this. But when LJ was going to be born, and Ashley was in the hospital. Look, that's how entwined this thing is for me. When Ashley was in the hospital and LJ was about to be born, I remember that helpless moment, right? Like. She has fibroids, right? So like having a child with fibroids is dangerous, and the fibroids were pushing against her stomach. They literally told me that my wife might not make it, and they asked me which one I would save. Right? Yo, oh, I was like, please don't make me make that choice. Like, please don't. I literally said, please don't make me make that choice. And like, there's so many different. Sitting outside of the room as they prepped her to try to save them both. I've never had a more helpless feeling in my life. never felt more helpless, right? I want to say, if I didn't have my beliefs, I don't think I'd be here. Fair?
That's fair.
I don't know if I could be who I am. I don't know if I could be crying on camera. I don't know if I could be giving in the way that I am if I didn't heal. You understand what I'm saying? So many people wouldn't have a space to heal if I didn't do the work myself. Genuinely.
I think I realized that moving here to Rochester. I was like,
Yeah.
I gotta do fucking something.
Fair.
I gotta do something.
Yeah, it's a hard journey, because like I said, sitting out there was just, I mean, there's nothing you can do. Everything's out of your hands.
Yeah.
Those moments are the moments that some people pray for the first time in their life. And I was so grateful to already have that relationship, to be able to talk to my father, right? Like, that was a moment where I was like, I'm so glad that we have a relationship, because I cannot lose them. I don't know what I'll do if you take them. I was like, I'm serious. And again, if you know me, you know me, right? So when we all came out, like, I left, and I was in that parking lot for like an hour. Just thank you. Like, I don't know if I could do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm tearing up right now talking about the damn thing. Like, whoo.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Ashley is my rock. God's the balance for it all for me. But like, I couldn't imagine being a single father.
Yeah.
I couldn't. And that for me is the hardest part. The hardest part for me was realizing that God made me a dad to help a ton of people. He took my story and changed it so I could be here for people I know nothing about. Can you imagine driving to a space every day, leaving my family to come here and walk in purpose? Right? Like, if I was selfish, I would have tried to be there all the time. But I've never said this. I don't know if she'd be here if I chose to be selfish in that moment. Do you understand what I'm saying? My faithfulness,
Yes, dude.
I think, became the extension of God's will on our lives.
I will say energy. Nah.
Right?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, to give is divine. Like, to give is to be God, is the God, right? To do what you're called to do, to give of others unselfishly, just because you know you're supposed to, I feel like is the vibe. And for me, that was it. So like, when people come in and they're all mad, they're like, nah, nobody can love me here. I felt that way. I literally understand what you're saying. You don't know I do, because you don't know me.
Yeah, you don't know my story.
But you don't understand. There was a point in my life I was not who I am today. And because of that, I can stand in the gap for people like that.
And I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think I'm just trying to.
I think that's why we resonate the way we do, right?
I'm just trying to sharpen my tools so that I can meet people there, because I see it.
Yeah, I don't look. If you weren't here, I know if I'd be crying on camera. You get what I'm saying? Like, you being you has made space for me to be me, and I think a lot of people think our dynamic is like, you
One
just
way.
take.
One way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that like I'm this amazing dynamo that you just take from.
To be real, that's how I felt for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I knew
think
it wasn't
now
the
I'm
case.
starting to see.
Yeah, we're more brothers now than anything else. Like, I'm still your mentor and all the other stuff, but like, I remember coming in and telling you, and I was just fucking crying like a kid. I haven't cried like that in years, right? And now, watching you express yourself and have the joy that I lost has helped me to reclaim it. Mm-hmm. And that right there was a very big part of our relationship. And that stuff became what most people feel now, right? they're like, then, I remember, look, just yesterday, I made Jada mad because she was doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing.
Right.
And then you were in the corner like, but you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing. He didn't call you out just to call you out. He asked you to move and you just didn't listen. So that was the result. And she, whether she knows it or not, understood that, like the connection. She's like, okay, it's because I wasn't supposed to be doing that, or it was because it was disruptive, or whatever the case may be. So that's why in moments I refer to it as like the pastor and the evangelist, right?
Oh, you found the word.
Yeah. Evangelists are people who go out in the field and they're like, man, let me tell you about like how dope GID is, like the space of itself. And then they get here and like, I kind of, like I said before, I like the fact that people aren't focused on me. I never felt like a person should be the focus.
I think that's a big difference between this gym and a lot of other places.
Yeah. So when people come in and they're like have no idea what they're running into, but they're so excited to be here, that to me is huge, right? Now I heard this place is where people get what they need. Not, hey, I heard you're the trainer that does that. Like, I like that. I actually enjoy that. So, shit, talking about walking in purpose through pain. Tough. It's tough. But if we don't do this, you don't know that it happens. Like, I wish, I swear to you, I wish that somebody had told me what it was like had been there with me, walked with me. And I remember I had those moments I've talked about my dad and like seeing him in his meek moments, not weak, meek.
Right.
And watching this man love. I was like, yo, I don't know why you didn't do this. And it became the extension of how I do it. And that has become the ethos of space. Like, love is the ethos. So when you said it, you were right. But when you said that you were it, you were wrong. You get what I'm saying? It wasn't that you were wrong on where you were going and what you were feeling. It was how you manifested the thing that wasn't right. And again, you could look at the life. You could look at the life of a person. Are they living a life that they actually love? Right. They love. Because if you don't love yourself enough to live the life you want, how can you love another person? You get what I'm saying? It's legitimately damn near impossible, right? And love, for loving yourself, teaches you what it's like to love someone else. Can you love you when you're ugly? Can you love you when you're happy? Can you love you when you're sad? Can you love you when you feel broken and you get to see your weakness? Can you love yourself? Then if you can't do it for you, how you gonna do it for the next person? Right? And so many people think it's the other way around. It's not. My weakest moments were the moments where I learned about myself. And when Ashley had her weak moments, I was able to hold her through them. When I thought I was gonna lose my wife, God embraced me like I've never been embraced before. Made me feel it was okay. And I dragged my body to my car and drove here and taught that day. Dragged myself here. So distraught, brother. Dragged myself here, right? This is the same woman when my first child was born. I was an hour away. She held the birth of my child for an hour until I got there. She would not have that child until I was in the room. She
held it in?
Strong, yes, literally. This woman is strong in will and purpose. That's why I be telling you all the time. I said, if Ashley line up with this space, we going far, right? Because I know this woman's, the will of God on her life is insane, right? And I get reminded of that every time we have conversations like this. And I had to say, I really said, I don't know what I do. If you take them, I don't know what I'm gonna do, right? But when I said that, I felt embraced. Like, it's gonna be okay. And I said, whew. I went in there, I watched the birth of my son, I held my son, and I made sure she was surrounded with love, and I drove my ass here. And I was like, I don't know if you remember that day. That day was rough for me. I was barely talking.
I think I do remember the day. I just don't remember you saying much.
Yeah, because I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know where my emotions were. I was so conflicted. You understand what I'm saying? So like that made it hard to be here. But you know why we do this? Why? First of all, for us. right? For you to receive, for me to receive. But there's so many people that are gonna watch these things and they think they understand. Like there's gonna be somebody new who comes in and they're gonna be like, man, that dude's so tough, or man, he's so mean, right?
And watch all the coaches' corners.
It's listen, I hope you watch them all. I hope you get to see the evolution of what we've done and who we are. And it brings you, for any man watching especially, solace. It brings you a space where you get to realize you ain't alone, man, because that's the biggest lie you can get told.
Yeah.
I'm by myself. Nobody understands. There's plenty of people out there who get
You end up telling it to yourself.
Yeah. There are 3 people in here who we ain't got nothing in common. But I'd be damned, like as far as like raised and coming up, T-Moore.
Facts.
Grew up privileged as hell. But when I tell you the love on them is so big, it's so big. How can you not see God?
That's what's crazy. I'm like,
can you see what I'm saying?
It's like, doesn't matter
Remember
how you grow up, how bad you grew up, how well off you grew up, like love in your heart like looks the same.
Their whole family has dedicated their lives to giving to less fortunate people. How can you say that person doesn't love? They've opened a whole space to give back to people. They don't have to do that. They don't have to give their time. They don't have to give their efforts. They don't have to stand on the front line while people complain at them and still give.
Right.
Literally do not have to and choose to every single day.
Yeah.
You gonna tell me that person don't know what love is? You understand what I'm saying? So that's why I think people get it jacked up in ethos, right? Like they don't understand that the center of what we do is love. That's why I can walk past some of the things that are said about me, some of the things that are shared, some of the, you want to talk behind somebody's back, that's your business. It will never be mine. My business is love. And that don't look like talking behind people's back. I'll acknowledge what you said, but that don't look like talking behind people's back. Anything I said to them, I will say to the person. Never will you find me just being out here just passing rumors around. Right? And because, again, that's the expression of the core.
Yeah.
It didn't change. Core didn't change. You see what I'm saying? Shoot, I hope Jesse watched this, right?
Yeah.
Like, cause she spurred me really taking it into deep consideration, and then Amy helped me to realize the processes I had, and then Kay called me into a space of solitude along with my friend whose name will not be mentioned because of who they are, and I don't want that to be something that they have to take on, but they called me out of my darkest moment and said I could do more, right? And that became those triggers along with you, seeing you in your joy. Like, how many people gave to me so I could express love differently, right? That's why you hear me say things like, I don't have to, I get to. I don't got to, I get to, right? It's not that I can't, it's not a priority for me. That's the type of stuff you heard me say because I understand what it's like to make change. I'm one of the busiest people that a lot of people know based on what's happening in my life. I'm never too busy for everybody. I literally will not sleep and do for people before I say I'm too busy. Tough shit. Tough shit, right? But I think it's what makes this space. I think people are starting to understand that love is the way to live.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're all looking for is really what it is. It's like you lost yourself, you know, and people come in here trying to find what it was.
Big facts.
And that is what it was.
And what's the first lesson we're teaching?
Love yourself first. Love yourself first.
So you got to come in here and listen to how people are loving themselves first. And then you got to take that time to open up your heart so you can love yourself first. And then you can use your mind to facilitate the change that allows you to love yourself first. Then you can love everything else by extension. Fill your cup. Literally, phrases you've heard me say 100 different times, they come from love, right? You know, so I hope this was educational for y'all, at least a little bit, or entertaining, shoot, one of the two. Man, thank you so much for watching. And I want to make sure that I say we are actually, you know, again, if you know anybody who needs a place where they can come and work towards bettering themselves, we'd be happy to have a conversation with them and have them join our community. So reach out to us at www.gettingitdaily.com or check us out on Instagram or Facebook under the name Getting It Daily. Again, we're here to help all of you all while we help ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you next time.
Peace.
Peace.